Hello and welcome to this week's RuneScape podcast. I'm Mod MattHe, and this week we are exposing Mod Osborne.
That sounds disgusting.
He does.
We're exposing bits that have never been exposed before. That's what I'm going for. Push it out there.
So, who are you, Mod Osborne?
Well, I'm now lead designer. This crazy new role that I found myself into.
Right.
It's really exciting. It's the opportunity to have a kind of broad oversight of everything that is done in RuneScape.
Yeah.
That includes even, treasure hunter, story, combat, economy, all of these things, and having oversight and knowledge of all of them as if the story wasn't enough before.
So we're packing more into your giant head.
Yeah, and that giant face, and being responsible for it. So at the moment, we're looking at things like 2015, 2016, and all of the exciting updates that are upcoming.
Right, okay. And your role before was?
It was narrative designer. Now,
Yeah.
It's a weird one, this, because I kind of retained narrative designer. I know this is a quirky thing that people are trying to understand what I do now. Narrative design is still a part of it. We're going to test it out, see if it works, see if I can keep hold of narrative design, still kind of influence it and still have as much input to it as I did before while taking on all of this extra stuff.
Okay.
Let's see if it can work.
So today we've asked players for some questions. And some mods have asked some questions as well.
Yes.
So that will help guide our discussion today, I think.
That sounds good.
So, at the start, are you still a narrative designer then?
Yes.
Yes is the answer.
I imagine, so there are some cracking story people. There are fantastic story people at Jagex.
Yeah.
You've got your Mod Rollies, your Mod Stews, your Mod Ravens, who I will still be I'll be leaning on a bit more,
Yeah.
I think. One of the things I'd like to talk about is how there'll be more responsibility for individual kind of the scrum teams.
Yeah.
To come up with content and to kind of pitch story at me. So there'll be a slight kind of reversal there. So there'll be more onus on them to come up with stuff.
Okay.
And also to draw on ideas from the community as well. So I will lean on them a bit more, but I'm still narrative designer.
So when your role was focused on narrative design, did you pitch story into those teams rather than allowing them to pitch up to you?
Yeah, the sixth age was... obviously, there are some people who have issue with the sixth age, number of gods and things like that. We'll push that to the side for the moment. But the sixth age was my baby, I guess. I remember running up to Mod Mark and saying, I want to kill Guthics. Can I kill Guthics? Because it had so many things that we could do if we did that. And so I laid out the scenario of the things that we could do in a sixth age, what that would mean to technology, what that might mean to RuneScape 3. That was all very much kind of me initiating that.
Yeah.
And obviously... Mod Anna hopped on board and we did the World Wakes and that triggered everything. This is more of a kind of a guiding light, I guess.
Okay.
Just kind of talking about those things that we want to do in a given year, maybe some principles of story, maybe then about the number of quests we could release in a year. Those are the things that I'm going to be more in charge or dealing with.
So how involved is Mod Mark? Because Mod Mark obviously has had design influence previously.
Yeah, that was the question that was asked as soon as... I moved into lead design. I think one of the strange things is that people thought that the role I was moving into was Mod Mark's old role.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not really the case. Mod Mark was more of an overseer of multiple things, multiple products. He was overseeing kind of elements of Chronicle, for example, even before. So the role I've moved into isn't Mod Mark's. It's just I've taken a bit of what Mod Mark used to do, a lot of the kind of minutiae, a lot of the kind of keeping on top of individual projects, having an oversight over all of RuneScape.
Yeah.
I've kind of just taken a little bit of. But Mod Mark himself is still heavily involved. He's my line manager.
Right.
So, I check in, he makes sure that I don't do anything wrong, lays the smack down if I do. He's still got passion for certain projects.
Yeah.
So raids, he's probably involved in that more than I am.
Right, okay.
He's got a real hand in everything. He can't keep him away in some instances. You'll still see him in sprint reviews, which is where the scrum teams kind of throw out all the stuff they've done in a given 2 weeks and say, this is what we've made. Marco will still be there going, yep, like that a lot.
Cool.
Or, the other thing.
So, Fuzzwell asked about, in relation to lead design, what is your quest? What do you want to change at Jagex, design-wise?
A good question. I'm a big fan of, as I said before, kind of getting all of the staff members on board with a real, very clear direction. So this is going to largely happen in 2016, I feel.
Yeah.
But knowing full well where we're going, what we want to do, and having some big kind of bold aims. Some of those are like, I'm a big fan of the cadence stuff we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of moving to something where we have a large update in a given month. I like that idea, the idea of that large update percolating through the rest of that month. So you have a big coherent theme.
Yeah.
Imagine you had a huge boss encounter like a Raxor in a given month. And then we use the assets from that boss encounter to maybe make a smaller quest that goes with it.
Yeah.
So that you've got that kind of variety of quest players got something to do, but also a PBM player. But you've got this kind of theme. I understand what this month is about.
Yeah.
I also can share assets between them. And by doing that, okay, we've got a large update, but we can also get these kind of bottle quests or smaller quests out there as well.
Yeah.
Maybe we do a D&D or a minigame using those same assets. Maybe we can get in some ninja content that focuses on PVM as a whole in that given month. That's just an example, obviously.
Yeah.
So it's about getting really impactful updates out to the players. Things that, you can look at BTS and go, this is something huge. It's something I've really been looking forward to. Understanding what the players want, but also getting more out there for more bang for your buck, I guess.
Yeah.
By more intelligently using the resources, by sharing assets, but also maybe even serializing content.
Okay.
Before, we've been afraid to do things like Vampire Quest followed by a Vampire Quest.
Yeah.
In immediate kind of close proximity. But the thing is, if you do it in 3 years' time, we'll go, I'm not sure if the graphics look as good as we want them to be.
Yeah,
we rework everything, it suddenly becomes a lot bigger than it was before. And you've also lost that kind of momentum. You've got that feeling of, bam, 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 this story is finished.
Yeah.
Which leads to my other aim, which is I really want to kind of, give players what they want. I want everything to be impactful, you're looking at BTS, but also to finish things.
Yeah.
I think there's that sense of we get tired of an idea and then put it to the wayside saying, yeah, we'll come back to that in a moment, but now we've got this new thing that we're interested in. I think we could be quite skittish like that.
Yeah.
I think that getting things done, getting them done properly and finishing them will also be something you see a lot more of in kind of the end of the year in 2016.
Okay. So RS Hums said, what can you do now that you couldn't do as a narrative designer?
Narrative designer is really kind of somebody that you would lean on as a liaison. So Mod Dean would come to me and say, okay, what stories would you kind of like to tell?
Yeah.
And so I'd lay out all the things that I'd love to talk about. And then Mod Dean would say, right, we're going to tell that story, that story, that story, and we're going to tell 6 of them in a given year.
Yeah.
And we're also going to do all of this other content. It may be that he wanted to have 3 boss encounters in a given year, that sort of thing. So he was the Commissioner Gordon. He was the one who said, these are the updates that are coming out. So I've got input now on that. So there's a real sense of what we do is something that I can really have input on. And I've got something to offer there. I don't want people to be worried that everything is going to be a quest. Right. I think that's worth kind of putting out there. That that's in no way going to happen. I mean, I do want to increase the frequency of quests.
Yeah.
I want to add story content to non-quest content.
Okay.
But ultimately, I'm very aware of the variety of players. Okay, I've got my story background, but there are some exciting things I want to do with skilling. Same with invention, training, combat. I want to make sure that we've got less of a ceiling to combat as we do currently. There's so many things I want to do that are just not limited to story.
Okay. I think some of those points are something we'll pull out later.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
But in the meantime, what's your favourite movie?
Good question. If I'm ill or tired, it's got to be Die Hard.
Right. Okay.
It's just sitting there, probably same lines as the lines appear on.
Yeah.
As they say them. Quarter pack is toast.
Muddy Funster.
Yeah, exactly. Hans Booby. Anyway, if not, then it's probably Blade Runner.
Right, okay.
Blade Runner is my...
Which version?
If I'm feeling a bit more switched on, right.
Because that's kind of important.
That is... I'm not sure. I'm going to go for the original, I think.
Really?
I am going to go for the original. I can understand the, wanting to add unicorns, etc.
Okay.
I'm a big fan of the original. I've got good memories of it. Just let me do my kind of Rutger Hauer speech at any point and I will reel it off. I won't do it in the podcast.
So therefore, the next most important question is replicant or not?
I reckon. I don't think he imagined him a
not?
replicant. I don't think Ridley thought he was a replicant at the start. I think he's kind of been teasing people and adding a little layers of mystery to try to make it feel like he's always been a replicant.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, but I love the film. Gorgeous.
Are you a fan of the story?
Do I enjoy Stream of Electric Sheep? I'm a big Philip K. Dick fan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd expect that of you. So, what can we expect in the rest of 2015?
2015 is weird because it's... I wouldn't say it's somebody else's baby, but if I came in and changed everything now with 2015, they've already been in production for a while. Things that are coming out in December have started now. some things that are coming out in the next couple of months are deep into kind of even post-production in some cases.
Yeah.
I'm not upsetting that cart too much, but we've got some good stuff, and we have been able to manoeuvre some things. For example, one thing that we haven't talked about before is a Falador graphical rework. Everybody knows about it. We wanted to do it. We wanted to make sure that we still did kind of these tweaks and improvements to existing content. I've been talking to the Guardians about doing something that makes it more of a beach-like event.
Okay.
They've got some great ideas about kind of night tourneys and things like this, and, you know, kind of jousting.
Right, okay, really appropriate stuff.
Yeah, exactly, and maybe making this an annual event. So I really like what's being done there, and hopefully we can talk a bit more about that at RuneFest or later on. But it's all about kind of just gently kind of bolstering what is there. And as I say, it's really weird coming to somebody else's ideas and somebody else's kind of schedule of updates. And just kind of gently tweaking them, because really it'll be 2016 where you start seeing the new guard having a real influence.
Okay. So do we have any sneak previews for 2016 then?
RuneFest
I couldn't let that go past.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I know. You're trying to tease something out without me going, oh, I don't want to reveal too much. 2016 is, as I say, is going to be these kind of big themes. I've talked about kind of how I would like to get to a point where elite skills are coming out every year. And it's a gentle piece of skill content every year. I'm a big fan of potentially taking and ending our 6th Age God content.
Right.
That's exciting to me, and that's something we will talk about in RuneFest.
Okay.
So I wouldn't worry that the only story content we're going to do is God content in the next year.
Yeah.
Please don't feel that, but the idea of building some momentum, and as I was saying about serializing, kind of getting some velocity to it and finishing that big pillar, basically.
Okay.
So that we can look at not bigger and better things, but other things.
Look at other things and change focus.
With story, looking at continuation quests, like what we can continue and then finish.
Yeah.
These existing storylines. And I think you will soon see a content survey going out.
Okay.
This survey was out to the players, a certain number of players, a sample, and we'll talk about some of the large updates that could form that kind of linchpin of each month.
Yeah.
And it's soon going to become public domain, obviously. People are going to post this on Reddit, etc., or what those big linchpin updates could be. And there are some really exciting ones in there. I don't want to kind of
preempt
the ones that people will kind of rate because they were given the opportunity to rate. But I don't think there's any surprise that in there are things like a God Wars Dungeon 2.
Yeah.
Sailing, a mystery content, the idea of exploring a content that we know nothing about. And people moving stage by stage through that continent. I like that a lot too. These are things that we're going to talk about and that will become public domain soon. But those excite me. They kind of encourage, in certain instances, sometimes they encourage new behaviours and new feelings that you've never had in RuneScape before. I really like sailing and the mystery content because we haven't really had exploration for a while.
Yeah.
They also potentially give the feeling of ownership. I own this area. The game world. And what I'm really excited about is, rather than just throwing out something that's just going to, I can grind this for a certain period of time, maybe, that kind of content, maybe we could try and incite new feelings.
A kind of sense of wonder again.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we can do that. And God Wars Dungeon 2 comes from a place that I don't think would have existed. I think the players told us about this with dragons.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes you can overthink something. Like, we're coming out with new mobs and coming out with new mechanics to them, etc. But sometimes people just want to extend what is already there. You know, I really like dragons. I like the mechanic of dragons. Just give us some more.
Yeah.
I really like God Wars Dungeon. Just give me some more. And there is room for that that avenue of thinking. Okay. And that's where God Wars Dungeon comes from.
Okay. What's your favourite word?
My favourite word?
Your favourite word? You're a wordsmith.
Apart from opening every sentence with yeah and so.
So?
Yeah, yes. I try to move away from that.
On podcasts, I catch so from you. So, tell me about it.
I'm also famed for the worst word in the world, which is jag excellent. People hate this.
That's an awful word.
Originally, like, a HR came to me and said, have you got an idea for how we could measure kind of success of people at JagX? And I went, well, obviously, Jag Excellence. And suddenly it appeared everywhere. It's in birthday cards, thank you for being Jag Excellent. And I was blamed for this and hated for it. So that's my least favourite word. My favourite is probably jamboree. I like jamboree as a good British word.
Okay.
I use it far too often in terms of kind of promotions and things. Whenever people come to me and say, what can we call this promotion? It'll generally be something jamboree. Okay. Still haven't got it in there yet.
How about discombobulate?
Discombobulate is good. It's,
that was Mod Bond off on the side shouting discombobulate. Discombobulate is actually one of my favourite words, but my favourite word is moist. Because it sounds like the texture. It's like the word bubble.
A really onomatopoeic
kind
of thing.
But apparently there's another word for it. Like
synesthesia.
Yeah.
Engorged
moist
is good.
Moist
Engorged for the same reason.
Oh, yes. That's quite good. But yeah, I quite like jamboree. Is jamboree a borrowed word?
Oh, I don't know. Let's look it up.
I bet it is.
Yeah,
we're not going to look it up now. But if our listeners would like to look it up and tell us,
please do.
The origin of jamboree, just from
I don't know why that popped in there. Then I should have prepared an answer for that.
Okay. Right. So,
yes.
Will we get monthly quests now you're in power? Fuzzwell again.
Inspector quests again. Damn it.
In power, I think it's just
I love
a kind of relationship that's not quite there.
I love the image of that. That is like I've somehow got into this position and then I get drunk on it and just kind of like...
See, I imagine you on a throne with a sceptre and going, give me more quests.
It's very Brian Blessed.
Yes.
Finally, now I can do all these things I wanted. So I don't think that there will be a quest every month in 2016. I think there will be a substantial increase in the number of quests. With the notion of bottle questing or producing quests where the focus or onus is on character, personal stories, personal arcs, and not necessarily on god sizes and scopes, which inevitably comes with its own cost.
Yeah.
And just letting the developer own it and really kind of come up with some interesting kind of new narrative structures, all of these things are really quite interesting, can be done on a smaller scale, and I'll be encouraging that a bit more.
Okay.
Whether or not that can be tied into the continuation quests is something that I'm looking at. I would really like.
Yeah. I know Mod Ravens, myself and yourself have all talked about those kinds of mini quest, bottle quest kind of.
We've had 4 brainstorms recently on the first one was what we could do with the 6th age, second one what we could do with continuation, third one what we could do about new and interesting narrative structures, and the fourth one is something I've completely forgotten already. It was a mysterious one that I now has evaded my mind, but you can see the things that we're focusing on. Innovation, character, personal touches.
Okay.
Not sure I answered the question there. I've forgotten the question already.
Will we get monthly quests? The answer is...
It's more quests now.
But more.
And also more content, like Raids has done.
Yeah.
Like Dragons has done. That kind of infiltrating, percolating story through it.
Yeah.
You know, there are journals, there's definite law reasoning for why things are there. There are, within Raids, for example, Mazcab, you've got these mini quests and personalities you can interact with that really add layers to it and make it feel more immersive.
Okay, so because you've mentioned it... what would have happened had Tusker won?
Oh, man. Now, I'm not sure if Scrum One are entirely happy with me talking about this, but we definitely had a plan for Tusker had she won the encounter.
Yeah.
I know there has been a lot of kind of spin-off conversations about whether Tusker could have won. We'll leave that to the side by now. But we had a plan for if Tusker landed on Gielinor, sorry.
Yeah.
She wouldn't have died. She would have been alive. And the Godless would not have been there. So instead of being a hub for the Godless, it would have been a hub for Tusker's followers. It would have been a very different piece of game content. And what is very interesting to me is that we actually had... So when I was talking about 6th Age content for next year, we'd actually kind of ringed off a quest that would have been different, fundamentally different, I mean completely different.
Yeah.
Had the Godless won or had Tusker won. So the main protagonists in this quest are different based on that.
Okay.
So please be aware that obviously 2016 is up in the air. We're waiting for survey results, for example, player input.
Yeah.
But I think that's the first real indication that Godless will play a big part in 2016.
Okay. Why can't players farm the new raid bosses?
If you've been watching...
There's a lock.
Yeah, that's right. So if you were watching the live stream on Tuesday, it was revealed that these raid bosses will act subtly different from the bosses that you are used to. I think in RuneScape, more than any other game, you can rinse and repeat on your PVM encounters. You can go to, if you can, Virago and do it multiple times, but obviously players go to QBD, can do 4 or 5 in a go, run back to the bank, etc., and rinse it as many times as they want. With raids, we're taking a different approach, and there is reasons for this. What we're doing is that once you have gained the humongous loot drop that you gain for defeating each of the individual bosses in a raid, you're actually locked from getting any more loot for a period of 2 days. Now, that's on the 24-hour lock. So that's on the midnight lockout, I think.
Okay.
The reason we have done that is the alternative was that we could have put some drops on these bosses and allow players to rinse it. We may have lowballed that, and players complained that it was lowballed. If we highballed it, and if we are given really lucrative drops for doing it, then we are effectively saying that this is the new best way of gaining GP in the game, is to get into 10-man teams.
Yeah.
Very, very high level, very kind of highly communicative. You've got to talk to each other. And this is the best way of gaining GP, more so than any other piece of content. The number of gates to doing that is huge.
Yeah.
I think that you could get into a situation where players are simply doing this content for that. And we would have had to kind of pull down the kind of the high-level loot as well. It wouldn't have felt as lucrative per fight.
Yeah.
Other MMOs have taken this format for the same reason. The notion of a D&D, that it's something that you agree on, you schedule with other players.
Yeah.
And it also encourages variety. I'm not doing that raid boss over and over again. I'm fighting perhaps Virago, then doing a bit of QBD, and then my lock has kind of replenished, my cooldown has replenished for the raids encounter, and then we as a team go and do that.
Yeah.
I'm maintaining that variety between solo, mid-team combat content, and 10-man combat content. I think that balance is right. We're going to monitor it, but I do feel that was the right situation to go on. I can completely understand the counter-arguments, and I imagine we're going to get a lot of kind of conversation about it on launch by those players who are just used to it. RuneScape is just this, aside from D&Ds, players are kind of expect to go to a boss encounter and fight it 4 or 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
So I do expect there to be some friction, but I really hope over long term, this is actually beneficial for raids and combat as a whole.
You'll still be able to go in and fight it multiple times, though, won't you?
Yeah, that's absolutely worth mentioning. If you want to practice, and some people will want to, you can do. Yeah. If you want to gain the feats of accomplishment, if you want to unlock achievements, the Boss Reaper title, for example, from the boss mode, you will still be able to do all of these things. It's just you will not be gaining common drops, as it were, and not be able to access that high-level loot table. So please feel that you can help each other out and fight them, but ultimately we are not giving common drops for fighting it again.
Okay. An important question. How do you deal with Mod Ravens Monstrous Ego?
It's tough. There are so many kind of supposedly alpha personalities in the team. Mod Raven is one of those. He's a very difficult developer to work with. What you have to effectively do is play to the psychosis.
Yes.
You have to make them feel like they are kind of leaders, champions of RuneScape, that they have a lot of power. So when they kind of give you decrees and say, "Oh, I must put this into the game," you take it. You just file it away,
right? Okay.
And just kind of compliment them. Make sure their ego is.
See, I did it differently. I just called him Mini Evil, and every time he tried to boss me around, I just went, "Yes, Mini Evil," and attempt to prick his ego as much as possible.
That's it.
I see you played the counter.
It's different. Yeah, different approaches. Okay. I mentioned this because I put up a thread for questions for this podcast, and he just waded in and derailed it completely.
Yes,
by talking about himself mostly. We only got so many questions. So thank you, Brady.
Okay. What's going to be your approach to player power and Runelabs now?
Massive fan of player power. Okay. I think that RuneScape, more than any other game, is kind of not necessarily owned by the players, but got such loyalty. The players have been with us for so long. Constantly got ideas, constantly got feedback through that kind of culture that has come up from the suggestions forum and Reddit. And we have invariably listened to it. We're closer to the community than so many other games.
Yeah.
Player power is hugely important. So I'm a big fan of the player design documents, what we did with Elf City, the notion of transparency and doing that more and more with what we've got, putting concept art out there, asking for feedback. We're going to see more of that. I think it's worth mentioning here, by the way, that Invention, we're actually kind of getting the feeling of maybe pulling it away from a player design document and more to kind of dev bloggish stuff. So please be aware of that if you are waiting for the design documents. It's just that feeling of Invention is more about the sitting down and interact with it. It's quite... it's not something that communicates particularly well in design document format, so we're just going to go over the individual stages of the blog.
We're still going to keep a strong level of communication
live
about
streams,
our
etc.
ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. It just doesn't suit the design doc as much because we put together some draft ones and it wasn't working for us. Regardless, transparency is huge. I'm a big fan of the polls. I think some great things have come from the polls. Yeah. That kind of binary of kind of positioning two huge updates against each other. Still things we could improve. I think we got to a point where we were determined to release them frequently. Yeah. And then they kind of petered out, or the subjects weren't as strong. over the course of the year, and it felt like they were diminishing a bit.
Okay.
Runelabs, I am a fan of. I do feel that there are some issues with it. A lot of those are on our side. When we initially launched it, a lot of features weren't there. Moderation of it is time-consuming but worthwhile, and we've got to find a way of balancing that.
Yeah.
But I also feel that it's impossible to look at Runelabs and not think that the number of ideas coming from it is lower than we thought or hoped for. Obviously, a lot of that is our fault. But I really hoped for more ideas coming from it, more upvoting in particular.
Yeah.
Sorry, there are quite a few ideas, but the upvoting hasn't really generated much kind of movement of those ideas. Not seeing a huge number of votes in the winning options that go onto the poll. A lot of that is because you don't see trending. Yeah, trending is not in there, for example. And there is a big kind of, you called it a rose bush, a big rose bush of ideas that is hard to prune. So that is something I really want to look at. Ultimately, what I think we're going to do is I'm going to be putting a survey out there.
Okay.
Asking a number of questions about Runelabs, players' thoughts on it. In particular, whether or not it's good to keep going with Runelabs but just add more features. Whether or not Runelabs isn't the right way of getting player input. Maybe polls is a better way of getting player input. All of these different questions about Runelabs. And so we can maybe kind of mould it into something else. I'm imagining that would then follow up with a poll. Okay. And we'll make a kind of hard, decisive decision about what is going to happen with Runelabs.
Yeah.
Because we're 6 months in. Effectively, the next criteria that will come up will determine January's update. It seems like a really good time to talk about it before it starts, Runelabs starts kind of impacting on what we decide to do for 2016. Because we want to have that bold, yes, we're doing this for 2016, and we want to know how Runelabs plays into that. Okay.
So why did we add such a tight set of criteria around the Runelabs quest in December?
Yeah, first of all, I wanted to apologise because the first thing that I think that we did wrong with this new criteria, the quest criteria, was we didn't put it out early.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue that we've learned from. Obviously, there's not much we can do about that now.
No.
I think there are a lot of players, and I didn't anticipate how many of these players there were who had their ideas ready.
Yeah.
Who just they knew that quest criteria was coming out in December, and they couldn't wait to get it out there. And then suddenly this criteria limited everything, and they had to quickly rework everything. And obviously there's this perception that an idea has to be out on the first day, otherwise it will not be successful.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's true is a different matter, but there is that perception, and obviously it played to that. The reason we did the criteria is, in-house, we didn't want to necessarily see ideas that we had thought of before.
Yeah.
It's a common in-house criticism, is that, and it's again our fault because we keep on mentioning them, and they're obviously going to have more weight because they come from us, is that we're seeing ideas that were generated by us, and we really saw Runelabs as, come on guys, just tell us things we hadn't heard before. Yeah. Tell us your wacky creative ideas, your fan fiction, your fantastic characters. And we saw this as an avenue of getting new stuff out there. But obviously there are other people who see this, so actually saw Runelabs as a way of getting stuff that they really wanted that had been on the back burner for a while and prioritised. Yeah. And again, didn't anticipate the level that was. To be fair, though, looking at the questions that are coming from it, looking at the quest ideas, I really like it. I do think it's a good format. I think that you can still subtly change existing quest ideas, like Elemental Workshop 5, for example, and rework it into a question format. I still think that that's possible, or could have been possible, with a little bit of kind of manoeuvring. But yeah, so I wanted to apologise about those things, but I still think that we're going to get a great piece of content from it.
Okay. What's your favourite RuneScape update?
Favourite RuneScape update? Cracker, that was left field. I am the most disorganised of RuneScape players. I tend to log in wanting to play and then find that I'm completely daunted by how much there is and don't do anything. Okay. So my favourite updates, the things that have changed the game for me so much, is challenges and dungeoneering. Dungeoneering is just beautiful because I can go in there solo, especially now that it's more lucrative as solo, and just have everything, all of my skilling in one place that I can just harvest it all, move on to the boss. And then
you beast mode?
I'm beast mode.
Oh, right,
absolutely.
okay.
Me and Mod MattHe are probably the only beast moders. I'm the most frustrating dungeoneer to be in a party
You make Mod Timbo cry, don't you?
I do. You'll find me in the opening room just lighting fires. I will have my chain there. My Timbo would go, have you got a key, Dave? I don't know if I've got a key. We're just looking for wood, as it were. And then challenges, I think, are brilliant. So when I do my check-ins, Invariably, I go in like once every 2 days, once every 3 days. Again, it gives me that opening kind of, what shall I do today? Go to my challenge system. They're there for
there's
me.
this thing I can go and do now.
And it's opened up so much content I didn't do before. I never really done, kind of beacons, etc.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it's just got me doing it, and there's so much kind of hidden stuff that I'm suddenly doing. It's made me do quests that I'd been, I'd done them in my tube, not on my tube, on my work account, multiple times with quest helps and design reviews.
Yeah.
But actually doing them as a tube was great.
Okay. RS Hums asks, do you feel even more enthusiastic than ever before?
You can probably tell from this point, I love the opportunity to talk on my own. You never have guessed. Nobody's ever done a podcast just with me and on me before. You see the ego coming through. So you could probably tell I'm still enthusiastic. It's more tiring. I didn't expect to be in so many meetings, so much work, so many additional hours, and to happen at the same time as baby. So I have a daughter now who is taking up a lot of time and demanding my attention. How dare she?
And robbing you of sleep.
Robbing me of sleep. She threw up in my mouth yesterday, which was a new experience. I just fed her and I was kind of bouncing her, and then I put her above my head. So she was directly above me, and she projectile vomited into my mouth. It's quite coppery. I didn't expect that.
Right, okay.
Anyway, sorry, moving on. All of this is leading to the fact that it's more tiring. I find that I've got to recharge a little bit more. RuneScape's actually a good way of recharging.
Yeah.
But the enthusiasm is still there, and I'm still very excited. Mostly about like what we could do in 2016 and what is coming for 2015. Right? It's just the idea of just looking at a mock schedule that we've got created. Yeah. We did this for an offsite just to show everybody. And when we showed this schedule, we actually got a round of applause. Everybody was so excited for it. Okay. And just looking at that and thinking of the potential for 2016 and some of the ideas that we have, it just makes the kind of goosebumps come up, the hairs on the back of the neck, as it were.
I think we can tell how enthusiastic you are by the amount of thigh slapping you've just done during that sentence. Repeated.
Pantomime thigh slapping.
But that kind of leads into Miss Lion Tara's question. Will you have more time to chat to players now as lead designer?
Yeah. You probably won't be surprised to find that my free time, I have less of it. It's difficult to find the time to go on to things that I really want to do, like the forums, Twitter, Reddit. Also just kind of chatting to those people who come in for player tours. All of these things, you're going to have a little bit less of that time, but kind of focus it a little bit more. I know what Miss Lion Tara is focusing on because I put up a trimmed and comp thread a little while ago that I haven't kind of checked in on. Okay. And she's very much a kind of, I'm assuming she, is very much a kind of proponent of making sure, bringing down those trim and comp recs.
Right, okay.
So that they are more accessible. They aren't, these kind of ridiculous far-fetched notions like Castle Wars requirements. Yeah. Gently on that note, very quickly, I'm more of a fan of giving players more options or ways of getting those requirements rather than bring the requirements themselves down.
Right, okay.
So the minigame spotlight was really in that kind of vein of thinking.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's okay. The problem is that obviously you've got a bipartisan argument. You've got really extreme kind of feelings on it. Those who say, wait a minute, these are the comp recs that I've gained, how dare you lower them? And those who are saying they're outrageously high, even though I've got them, I think everybody else should have a chance. Yeah. So it's about how best to kind of deal with those two groups.
And during the minigame spotlight, when it was on Castle Wars was incredibly popular.
Yeah, absolutely.
Still, so it's not as though they've removed all impetus to go to Castle Wars. Castle Wars is still
I think that's a good approach. Their Motherlode More is another good one where there was just another avenue of getting towards those requirements.
Okay. So, possibly the most important question we're going to ask today.
Okay.
Exactly how big is your face? So, if I have a 1-to-1 scale model of Tusk, is your face the gravitational pull that has in fact caused her to crash into Gillinor?
Oh, I really like the idea that she's slingshotting round my face, using gravity to pop around. It makes perfect sense. I think this is some kind of RuneScape conspiracy theory waiting to happen.
This is Mod Jack's question, I should point out.
I think he wanted me to use science.
Apparently I had to use scale models, examples. So the moon, which is it your moon, is your face bigger than the moon, or is in fact your face the Death Star?
Should we use displacement?
Death Star?
Oh, Death Star. That's not a moon, it's a face. I can see this
Do you displace more than the USS Enterprise?
Oh,
As in the aircraft carrier.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which has a massive displacement, as I understand it.
That's left field, okay. Bigger than all of these things. You're talking, this is small fry.
Okay. Face bigger than the Milky Way?
Yeah, let's go for that. Okay. That's good. Okay. My face is Milky Way. I can wait for the memes to be created now. No, I like it because it's been rainy and windy at the moment, so I can see when it gets windy, people kind of gather behind my face as a windbreak, but when it's raining, I just turn up and people gather underneath. You know, it's this big two-dimensional satellite dish.
Yeah. Right, okay.
I'm going to get a complex. Oh.
Are you going to miss working with Chris L?
Yeah, I was watching the live stream on Tuesday, and it was sad because obviously he didn't really do it as a goodbye. I mean, he's not the most emotional of types, no. Old Mod Chris L. But it's we've been working as long as each other. I've learned so much from Mod Chris L. So I'm really going to miss him because he's like the complete counterpoint. He himself would probably admit that he's not as interested or well-versed in storyline. Yeah. So he's obviously kind of leaned on me a lot. And I would fully admit that my combat knowledge needs improving. I did design review QBD, which I'm still really proud of. Design QBD. But ultimately, still far from what Chris L. Yeah. So, I mean, he leaves a big gap for me, and it's a big shame to lose him. Wish him all the best, of course. Yeah. And
leading on, so Seeding RS asked, do you plan to leave Jagex?
Oh, cheeky.
It's a cheeky question, but understandable.
I think that there's this kind of strange perception. There's an obvious perception that we've lost Mod Dean, Mod Anna, Mod Chris L. Yeah. That maybe there's some kind of mass exodus. Not by any means. In fact, there are fewer people leaving at the moment. It's just happened to be that some kind of big leading lights have left us, which is a real shame because obviously we worked with Mod Anna on World Wakes. We've got some fantastic memories of Branches of Darkmare as well. Mod Dean was my boss for so long. Yeah. So, yeah, worked with a lot of them. But no, have absolutely no intention to move on. Why would I? I've been given the keys to the toy box, as it were, along with other things. And I've got some really exciting things to do. I've got a fantastic team who are so ridiculously creative. And some of the updates, in particular, like there's Seren Quest that looks amazing. The Vampire Quest looks amazing. So much content is coming up. The mobs poll that's just finished and what the team has decided to do with mobs, and maybe expanding it out a little bit, which is a little peek behind the curtain there, is really exciting. And obviously there's 2016, so why on earth would I go elsewhere?
Okay. So what's your favourite body part?
Is this like favourite body part of other people or my own?
I don't know. Oh, the question just says, what's your favourite body part? So surely that's yours to decide.
So my favourite body part of my own, I'm going to go for...
Not the face.
Yeah, I'm not so much a fan of the face. My eyebrows are comical. My eyebrows have an ability to... There's some kind of chocolate wafer that kind of curls back in on itself.
Right, okay.
They basically do that. If I let it go, they'll form this kind of spiral.
Do you mean eyebrows or eyelashes?
My eyebrows.
So eyebrows spiral.
My eyebrows... Well, sorry, when I curl back in themselves and then in on themselves...
Are you sure this isn't a quest?
I think it's the beginning of one, isn't it? I think that there's some
new
character,
quest content.
I don't know why I'm mentioning this, but I thought that was a little reveal that I put in there. But my favourite body part is probably my shoulders. Okay. Kind of broad.
Broad shoulders.
Oh yeah, quite broad shouldered. So it kind of you can put shirts on it. It doesn't look like you're fat when you really are, which is quite nice, quite useful.
Yeah, I've got broad shoulders, but I'm still fat enough.
But we hide it well.
No. That
tubbiness.
Okay. So, Howring was keen to know what your priorities were for quests in the coming year then. How are you building priorities around them?
So, I'm very acutely aware that not everybody wants God content. On my Twitter feed, it's like unanimously, oh, no, we're God content. But also, when you put out a poll, you see that there is a silent majority who like 6th Age content and God content. Yeah. So, I'm very aware that there are these two kind of vehement groups about what quests should be. I really feel that we can, under that umbrella of finishing things for 2016, that theme, we can do great things with bringing an end to the God storyline, but also kind of really focusing on continuation and letting the kind of core large updates of a given month kind of filter into the themes of that storyline. I'm also kind of interested in getting that kind of feeling of momentum going, that notion of this story has come out this month, but I know in 2 months' time I'm going to get the next one, and in 2 months' time the next one, and in 2 months' time the next one, and then everything will finish. So I know that it's kind of boom, 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 and we're done. That feeling of serialization, and I can't leave, I need to stay in game and see what happens.
Okay. How involved are you going to be in RuneFest this year?
RuneFest is one of the big time things the past couple of weeks, but for good reason. I do love RuneFest. The things I've been involved in, skill chip activities. So if you're coming along and you want to know what you'll be doing, last year, for example, you were balancing on poles and kind of ducking under webs.
So I was going to say ducking under webs, yeah.
Yeah, I think we were throwing cabbages and things like that. Was that last year or was that year before?
Throwing cabbages, I think it was the year before.
Yeah, perhaps so. So all those kind of activities.
No, it was last year.
Yeah,
no, throwing cabbages was last year, yeah.
What I love about that is that notion of... So looking at what came out this year and how we could theme those up as things that people could do, there's nothing better than that. So we've been talking about how Heroes Welcome had a lot of duplication of things. One of my favourite ideas is that you'd be given a photo of a room and then you actually go into the room and so you're looking from that kind of photo to the room, trying to see, kind of spot the difference, but with the real world aspect.
But real world,
Yeah, I really like that.
Spot the differences.
Yeah, so just that kind of thing. Taking things, you only have to go and play the beach to know that there's probably 5 or 6 things that we could get people doing based on the beach. So skill chip activities are exciting, but also forming the schedule for the 2 sessions, the 2 main stages. Sorry, 2 stages. One main stage, 1 second stage. I've been given one on quests, unsurprisingly,
right.
But also talking about invention and elite skills. By that point, we'll have the kind of the items that you'll be making on show and things like that. So that's exciting. And there's also the possibility that Mod Mark's Fest, his section where he's talking about all of the big ideas that are coming up, might be more kind of feature-led, so bringing on individual people.
Right, okay.
So I might make a guest appearance.
We did a little bit of that this year with the new client.
Yeah.
That
you're right.
was in 2014.
That's it, exactly.
Fest,
so they'll be there. What else was I involved in? I'm sure, no doubt they'll be there to be talked to. There'll be find the JMod type events where you come and find us and ask us particular questions and things like that. There may well be a quiz. I'll probably end up on that. But it's going to be a great event. There's some lovely reveals. We've got some good stuff to play. To be honest, it's just really nice to meet the players again. Okay. It's a good crowd. Your favourite game? Favourite game? Always been a tie between Monkey Island 2 and Toe Jam and Earl.
I'd like to point out for the listeners that was the wrong answer. Clearly, Mod Osborne meant to say RuneScape and then some other.
Well, it's like it's like saying who's your favourite, who's you fancy most. You can't say your wife because it's so obvious and a given.
Can you not?
So RuneScape is my wife, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
In that given situation, RuneScape's always going to be the best game in the world ever.
Monkey Island 2 or
Toe Jam and Earl is the quirky one that I tried to bring out to seem a little bit hipsterish.
Okay.
It's a fantastic. It basically epitomises the 90s when I grew up. It's all neon and Funkadelia and Radical Dude, etc. But it's a really nice rogue game. I don't know if you've played rogue.
Yes.
Rogue games, which are trudging around trying to find presents that are the loot in this world, and it's great. Love it.
Okay. So our last question
Yeah.
is from Amaskut.
Oh.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen Aviancy?
Is that an Abana Aviancy or a Gillinor Aviancy?
Oh, I believe that's the point we fall in the chasm.
I think that is. I feel really bad about that because somebody went on to say that exact answer just as I was writing it down for the podcast. And so I've effectively stolen it, or at least it seems that way. But yeah. There we go. That's my answer. A true Monty Python reference. Because there's not enough of them in RuneScape.
No. Not
enough.
No. Well, thanks for coming in today,
Thank you so much for letting me talk at you and interrupt you.
It's brilliant. It's always a pleasure to have you down here. And I hope to see you again on the sofa soon.
That'd be grand.
Right. Bye.